Hello, and welcome to Central Booking, where writers and readers are the authority. I'm your host, John Valeri. Today on Central Booking, I'm talking with debut novelist Andrew S. Cohen, who has the distinction of being my youngest guest to date. Now 13 years old, Andrew is the author of The Murder Mystery Race, which was written during the pandemic and published earlier this year. In the not-too-distant future, the town of Wayveryln, New Jersey is under attack by a serial killer known as the Knife Thrower. Tired of being confined to his home, Andrew, the book's protagonist, not the author, eagerly joins 15 teens aboard a luxury cruise ship where he'll compete to catch the killer and win the $1 million prize. Of course, the only way to win is to survive. Andrew, the author, is a thrill seeker who enjoys skiing black diamonds and riding roller coasters. He is an avid tennis and ping pong player and enjoys making extravagant meals for his family. An archery enthusiast, he has won 6 awards from the Camp Archery Association of the United States. Andrew and his family make their home in a suburb of Chicago. Missy's Books Reviews praised The Murder Mystery Race is a fast-paced thriller that you will not want to put down. It will blow your mind. You will be amazed at the brilliant talent Cohen has at such a young age. Now, join Andrew S. Cohen as he invites you to take part in the Murder Mystery Race. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Central Booking. I am excited to be in conversation with a young author today, Andrew S. Cohen, who is the author of The Murder Mystery Race. There it is. It's available for your reading pleasure right now. Welcome to the show, Andrew. I have to say, you are the youngest author I have ever interviewed, and I kind of love it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm really excited to be on here and get interviewed. This is a great opportunity, so I'm really excited.
Wonderful. Well, I am really glad to have you here. And I want to start with the obvious. Of course, I wanted to ask you what inspired you to write this book, The Murder Mystery Race? Where did the idea come from?
Well, it was in early 2021 while the pandemic was going on, and I was a little bored during COVID, and I've always really liked to be creative. So I started writing a lot. I had actually always liked to write, but I really picked it up during COVID. So then I started writing the murder mystery race, and just more ideas popped into my head, and I wrote a book.
Well, that was a productive use of pandemic time. I salute that. And I should tell people basically, the premise of the book is it's a town in New Jersey that's basically being terrorized by a killer known as the Knife Thrower. And so basically, the town is very much on lockdown because when people go outdoors, bad things tend to happen to them. Um, so, an inspired story, fun, frightening. And I want to ask you, who are some of your influences when it comes to story, whether it's authors, specific books, or some other format of storytelling? Are there things that you drew on for inspiration for this?
Well, I've always found Suzanne Collins as an inspiration, the author of The Hunger Games. I really like her technique of just being able to keep readers on the edge of their seats while they're reading her books, and I really want to be able to do that the way she can. And then another author I'm really inspired by is J.K. Rowling. So she is a fabulous writer. However, I really admire her motivation and how determined she is. She was a single mother before her book came out, and it was hard for her to make ends meet. And she was rejected by so many publishers and agencies, but she didn't give up. And I really admire her for that.
Two excellent examples. And you're right, J.K. Rowling, what an impressive story. And look at you. You are younger now than she was when she first got published. So that's a step in the right direction. So let me ask you this. So your name is Andrew, and I noticed that the character in the book's name is Andrew as well, though he has a different last name. So how are you most similar to your protagonist? And then the opposite side of that, what is most different about him than you?
Well, something that makes me and Andrew a little similar is that we both like to be with our friends, we're adventurous, and we're both a little sarcastic. And then what's a little different about Andrew and I is that I could never go on a cruise and start fighting a killer and learn how to throw knives.
Okay, so that is not what you're running around doing in your spare time. I wondered, you know? Most excellent. So let me ask you, obviously, the story here is extraordinary, but when you break it down and you sort of stop thinking about this masked killer who is terrorizing people, there are a lot of, I think, fundamentals that people will relate to. People of your age, or I can recall when I was a teenager, if you were a child of divorce or separation, you're worried about friendship, you're worried about fitting in, you're worried about deciding what you're going to do with your life. So, can you talk about a couple of these aspects beyond sort of the mystery thriller element that you think will really speak to readers that are of your age?
So I was actually not aware that I was sort of throwing in my book some problems and feelings I have in my life. And at that time, it was a lot of boredom and monotony because of the pandemic and not really having much to do all day. So I thought kind of throwing in that people in Wayveryln can't go outside because of this killer. It was sort of another way of showing how the people in this town are sort of locked in their homes. And also, I think a part in my book that other people may relate to is how Andrew isn't treated very well by some of these older kids in the murder mystery race that he goes on the cruise with. And I really like how I made Andrew as a strong character who really doesn't take stuff from them and is really tough against them. And I thought that would be an interesting way to build my character of him to show he's a strong, independent person.
Absolutely. Great example. And, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think sometimes when we're going through these experiences, we feel very much alone in it. And then we pick up a book like yours and we realize that somewhere out there is somebody going through the exact same thing. And so it helps. And you sort of have that empathy and feel of connectedness with somebody you might not even know. And I just wanted to piggyback on your comments quickly about the pandemic, because that was another thing I wanted to mention. There is, even though this book is futuristic, it's set a bit in the future from now. You do get the sense of the pandemic because you have that isolation. Andrew, is schooling through Zoom because, again, it's not safe for him to leave his house. So, would you mind elaborating a bit on how you were able to use your own pandemic experience and channel it into this book, even though this is a completely separate story? There is no COVID here, but people who have lived through the pandemic, I think, will very much relate to the feelings that COVID created.
That's an interesting question. Well, I think I channeled that into my book because it was just how I was. I mean, most of the time during the pandemic, I was feeling bored and even a little sad. I couldn't do much. And I think I was just naturally, without knowing, just writing my feelings out onto this document on my computer. And I think that that part about Andrew being isolated is a good way for people to kind of connect how, oh, well, that's how they felt. They were bored and annoyed. They couldn't really do much. So, yeah, that's
Sure.
my.
And there is Zoom in this book, which I love. I'm sure people at Zoom who will read this book will be happy to know that this technology will still be going strong, 20 years from now or so. Um, but let me ask you, I want to ask you now about the second half of the book in a very non-spoilery way. But as you mentioned earlier, it does play out on a cruise ship. And really, there's this competition where people are on board, young people who are looking to catch the knife thrower, and there's a $1 million prize at stake potentially. And from what I've read of you, you seem to be, a bit of an adrenaline junkie or a thrill seeker, which I am totally not. So again, I tip my hat to you because I never got that gene. But can you talk about, how you sort of drew on those experiences and the feelings of those experiences and worked those into the cruise ship competition aspect of this book?
Hmm. Well, besides the part about being a thrill seeker, I'm also a pretty competitive person when it comes to sports or anything, and I always like a competition feeling. And I think that competition feelings bring in suspense. So that's how I got the idea of kids competing to find a murderer. So that's how I got that sort of idea for going on the cruise to find the murderer. But yeah, some experience I've had that really made me the person with who's such an adrenaline junkie is that I really love roller coasters. And I just always kind of like that feeling when you're feeling a little scared. I like scary movies. And so I just decided to put it in a book in different ways you can feel that.
Nice. I like that. Scary movies I'm good with. Roller coasters, not so much. I'm usually like someone invites me to go on a roller coaster and I say, no, I'm going to go eat a fried Oreo. That's my speed. But good for you. So let me ask you about your writing journey as well, because from what I understand, this has really been a progression for you from comics and short stories to chapter books and now a full-blown novel. Can you talk about the steps along the path and how you were able to draw on those earlier experiences to have the discipline to see something through that's several hundred pages long versus a shorter work?
So I was in about second grade. I started writing short comic stories for fun, like you had said, I started out with. And then just as I got older, I was always really interested in just being able to write even more. That had always just been a goal and something I would hope to accomplish, just being able to write more, which I might know might sound a little interesting, a little bit of a broad goal of just writing a lot. But so as I kept on writing, I kept on thinking, ooh, what if I can make this book 50 pages? Or, ooh, what if I can make this one 100? So that's just how I just slowly got up to writing longer books.
I like that. So very incremental, but that was sort of your own personal competition with yourself. I think a lot of us could benefit from that. That's a very smart approach. So let me ask you this as well. A lot of young creatives, might believe that they are not old enough to write a novel, let alone publish it. And you have done both at the age of 13, and this was actually written when you were a bit younger. So what would you say, to people of your age who think that they can't do this based on the fact that you actually have indeed done it?
Hmm. I would just tell them that whatever you put your mind to, you can certainly achieve. I've, well, for writing the book, you really have to find something you enjoy writing about. If you start writing a book and you don't really like what you're writing, you don't want to think to yourself, this is boring, but I want to just keep on going to try and finish completing a book. Well, why would you write a book if you don't like it? You really need to find something you like. And that's not only something that's not only a reason why you should be writing the whole book because you like it, but you also will be able to write more and come up with better ideas if you like what you're writing about. And for publishing, I would say just keep on going. I was rejected by 5 publishers. One or two said they didn't really like my book. One or two said it wasn't a good fit for them. And one of them just didn't even respond to my Google form I had sent them. But I didn't let that stop me. I didn't let that stop me. And I eventually found a publisher and my book became published. So don't let anything hold you back, no matter what you hear. Just because a couple publishers don't like your book doesn't mean all the others won't. So I would just say keep on going and don't give up.
Very, very wise. I'm going to go off script for a moment if you don't mind. But one thing I wanted to ask you about is at the end of the book, you acknowledge John Ford, who I guess helped you edit. And I just wanted to ask you quickly about the editing process because I think that something people need to learn is how to take constructive criticism or feedback, with the intention that it's given. And obviously, you have already had that experience. So, again, if you wouldn't mind speaking to an audience who maybe hasn't had that experience yet of writing something and then opening it up to that kind of feedback, would you mind just briefly talking about, being open to that process and how it benefits a work like yours?
Well, I will admit I was definitely not prepared for all the comments I was going to get. I mean, when I first heard that the publisher wanted to work with my book, I thought, oh, boom, 2 months, I'll have printed copies in my hand. But that was not the case at all. Um, First, I had to work with many editors for countless hours, and you have to really be open to their ideas they have because they're just trying to make your book better, and they've had lots of experience doing this. And I really think you have to trust them. And yeah, I think you just really have to have an open mind and consider what other people think.
Most excellent. You are a publisher's dream, that open-mindedness, I think. So final question to you. I have to ask now, you obviously have the writing bug and you've been at it for a bit. So can you tease anything that we might expect next, whether or not it's related to this first book?
You can expect another book with even more action, thrill, and suspense than the murder mystery race.
Terrific. In the meantime, I highly recommend the Murder Mystery Race. And my guest tonight is Andrew S. Cohen. Thank you so much for being here, my friend, and best of luck to you in the future.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Central Booking. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a thing.